Hi everyone, welcome to today's webinar on all things BD. We've actually made this a two-parter because there's just so much to cover and the wonderful Michelle is going to be sharing everything for us. So just a bit of intros to get started. I'm Emily German, the Growth Marketing Manager here at Mercury. And as I mentioned, we are joined by Michelle, who is the trainer of trainers. So we had to get her on to run through everything BD. Michelle, I'm going to hand straight over to you because I know we've got a lot to cover in the next sort of 45 minutes or so. But just
Yep.
a bit of housekeeping. We've got the chat function, we've got the Q&A function. So if you've got any questions during, I can probably shout them out if they're relevant, but equally we've got a bit of time at the end. So yeah, make use of both sections as usual, and we'll be throwing a few polls at you as well. So Michelle, I'll hand it straight to you.
Why, thank you. So, hi everyone. It's been a little while since I've done one of these, so excited to be back on our webinars. So as Emily introduced us, we're doing part one of a BD session in here. So it's all about the setup. Part one's all about setting up. Part two is about action. So this is all. It's really important to take part in both, so you can kind of see what the system can do. Now, what the great part about all of this, which you'll love, is that you're using your own data. You've got so much good data in your systems, more than you reckon, than you think, to build up smart target lists for your teams. Okay, so that's mainly what we're focusing our time on today. The lists are dynamic, so depending on what logic you put in, depends on when things drop off that list or stay on that list. Again, you'll have a choice in that. You'll be building these yourself afterwards, I hope. Some of you may be all on this already, so we will ask you a bit later about who's kind of doing this kind of thing already. Is this new to you? Just to get an idea of what people are doing in the system. So main topics today, we're looking at org charts. I've got a little surprise for you as well in that org chart area to show you, which is not in my predefined list of content. We're going to focus very much on client statuses. It's a huge part of the session about where your client status is. You know, have you got vacancies with a client? Have you got placements with that client? Hugely important, and we'll use that in a lot of our logic today. As I said, we're going to build smart views, so smart lists of data. We are going to look at them and use them to run actions as well. We're going to focus a bit on our client contact search, which is also brilliant. So it's kind of like you could use things like views to build lists, and you could also use our search, sorry. And we're really spending our time in this kind of half an hour, 35 minutes or so to build and prepare our BD lists. Okay, so I'd really like some participation today. So if there's something new that you're seeing, that you're liking, that you haven't used before, or maybe you're unaware of, please use those emojis to react, either kind of give us a heart in there or maybe a shocked face of something that you think is pretty good. That'll be really helpful as well. So let's get into the system. Let's start off with org charts. So if we jump into Mercury, of course, make sure we're in okay. There we go. So org charts. So again, some of you may be using these already, some may not. So we want to highlight the feature. So if we go into a client that we've been working with, this is a great example of an org chart that's being used up to the highest standard. Okay, it's predefined, pre-built, and this is how it really should look. Now, our client here is got a client status of client, which means that we've made placements with this client. Okay, and again, we'll come back to the status shortly. So if we open the org chart just on the ribbon here, we can see, you're going to like this if you're not using this already. So basically, I can see straight away that every single contact in this list has been added to the chart. And this is all of our contacts associated with this business. So what I can do is I can kind of minimize this section and I can minimize the menu. And then it just gives me that focus on my business, right? And I can look at who we got in here and where are they in our kind of process in here. So basically, we can see already that we've got our CEO at the top, and then we've got CFO, CTO, etc. And the great thing about this as a visual is not only that you can see, you know, who's there, what position they are, and what teams they run, but the best part, I love this, and I bet you all will as visual people, as most of us are, is that you've got here these. You've got tags. Yeah, so you can add in if they're decision maker, influencer, blocker, or unknown. Really helpful when you're just business development and you're mapping it out. You can then go in and see exactly where you are with that particular person. You know, start working on them, going, right, someone that we don't know. We've heard of Harry, but we don't have a relationship with him. So it's something you can start building. Now, what you can also put in here is you could also mark somebody as an assistant to someone. So you can start mapping out who their kind of PA is or their EA is. It might help you to build up that relationship as well. It's a really handy tool. You can also add notes in. So you could add a little note in here next to that person. It's a little note icon there. Pops that on the side. You could then read any notes that you've got in there. So if you just want that quick one-liner of things you're doing with the business, the note will also go on the timeline of that contact. Okay, so it goes on the timeline and it's actually here in the org chart. So you can come back to it at any point. So that's how one looks like, how it looks, sorry, at a defined level. Okay, so we're going to go to a different account. So let's go over back to the menu. I've come across an account that was already in our system that looks really interesting. So we've got a client here. So a lot of them in your system will probably end up looking like this, and probably a lot of systems, to be honest, is that when you first go in, first of all, we've got a prospect client. That means they've got vacancies with us. So I've got a vacancy, at least one, but not a placement yet. Okay. So if we go to the org chart here, this is how it starts. Yeah, you've got no org chart in there at all. Everyone's in there on the left-hand side. And then what you can do is simply drag and drop in here to build up that org chart. You can see how I'm just dropping in. Nice and simple. Joe's left and Joe works for Kelly. So that's how simple it is to just put drag and drop. Now the field that it relates to, you know, when you're in a contact record, there's a field called reports to. If you're always entering the reports to field and updating that, the org starts updating on its own. So if you're starting to use that field or using it already, when you come into the org chart, it'll already be quite preset. Yeah, you already kind of see a good idea of who reports to who. Then what you can do is you can click on here and go, right, Gina. 1 second, it's saving itself. There we go, that's cool. So watch out for this edit chart if it goes into that mode. So click onto the here. She's definitely a decision maker, as we know. We know that Jack also is a decision maker. Kelly's someone that's an influencer. And Joe is someone that we don't really know too well. Sorry, Joe. So that's how it will look. Okay, and if you want to start when you're making calls, adding notes in, you can then start clicking on here, add a little note on the right-hand side, and then it goes on the profile. So that is your org charts. So I hope that was helpful. I think they're a brilliant way to start mapping out a client. Okay. Now let's go back one. Now, something I do want to point out that we don't always show as kind of standard in the system is, you know how you can build hot lists for people, but you can't necessarily build hot lists for companies. So this is a great way around this. So I really want to target this particular company and work with them. So basically what I could do is I could go to the 3 dots and I could use something called follow. So you can follow a client basically in the system. It creates a list for you. So it really becomes your target list. So it's very much like hot lists. You can't build more than one though. That's the only thing I'd say. But I'll show you where they sit in a moment. Now, last thing, I am going to go back to my original company just because their setup is so good. Let me show you this. Now, over here, we've got something called view hierarchy. Let's click onto this. So this is a little surprise today. It's something we've been looking at as a business quite a lot recently. It's called view hierarchy, and we call it visual hierarchy if you're speaking to your account manager about it. So check this out. It's so good. Now, the thing is with view hierarchy and visual hierarchies is they need to be built per system at the moment. So for all the people on this call that have been with us for a while, you probably won't have this feature in there. So once I've shown this, if you're interested in having this set up in your system, please speak to your CSM. They're more than happy to help you get this set up. It's brilliant. So you can see you could have more than one different kind of hierarchy in the way that you view the account that you're working with. So we can see here we've got our account and we've also got their subsidiaries connected as well. So if you're building up parent and subsidiary accounts, this is brilliant. And then you can build up. So very much whatever links together in the system through kind of entities in the system, whatever links together, you can add when you're building the hierarchy and you can link and see things. For example, in this one, we've chosen to put that when you're looking at a client record, that you can see how many contacts there are, if they've got terms of business in place, if they've got a placement in place at all, had any placements, if they've had vacant, do you know what I mean? So you can kind of go to take a little look at the account, see who they've got in the account, if they've got vacancies, if they've got placements. If they don't, you can instantly go and go, well, we've never had any placements for this kind of particular subsidiary. Why not? So you can start thinking, and I'm going to go and focus on them. I could then go on to here and click open something open. So I can see the people that work at that business. I could click further and open up their whole record. So it just is such a flexible feature in here. And I'll show you one more as well, just to give you a little idea. Love this so much. So then you've got your client. Again, you've got your subsidiaries, and this is all about the people that work there. Again, you could have it like this. All the individuals, what vacancies do they have? So we're not talking about the account having a vacancy. We're talking about the individual hiring managers having a vacancy. So you're getting to a deeper level of information. Same with placements as well, as you can see. So this is just to give you a little idea, a little snapshot of what you can do. It's called visual hierarchy, and it's a view hierarchy button. As I said, it's a dynamic feature that we do need to give permissions to in the system to switch it on to get this button here. So do speak to your account manager on this. Okay. There's your little surprise. Right. Let's get into it. So we want to talk about. Got a
Just
question?
before you go into it, Michelle, we have got
Yeah,
had
of
a
course.
question about the first org charts. So I just want
Yeah.
to get that answered
Yeah,
before we continue.
of
So one
course.
of them is how did you add more than one contact to the chart?
Okay. So first of all, for
And
that, all the contacts that link to the business already. So when you go to contacts on the account, every single person should already be in the org, if that makes sense. So as soon as you open it, everyone that's a contact will then sit in that org chart already.
perfect.
Yeah.
Another one, what does following do?
Aha, I'm leading to that right now. So let me show you, and you can come back to more questions. I'll just show you that one answer. So if we go to clients in the left-hand side, and we go to our different options in here, we've got one on naturally sitting called accounts that I follow. So as soon as you tick follow to an account, like I've just done, if we go to accounts that I follow, you can see the one that I just followed in here. Let's see how many times I can say follow. It's basically sitting here. So you can see anyone, and it's just a one shot list. There's no logic in it other than follow at the moment. Technically, you could build more logic in, like clients that I follow with X location, or clients that I follow. Do you see what I mean? You could create copies of that and build it deeper, but it is just one list. And you can also select from here and choose to unfollow at any time as well.
Perfect. It's a bit of a follow-on question from the first one about adding more than one contact.
Yeah, that's
The
fine.
person is having issues with they're dragging a contact onto the chart, but it
Yeah,
won't let them. Was there a certain thing you had to do in terms of dropping the contact on top of the other contact, if that makes
yeah,
sense, rather
you are
than
spot
below
on.
it?
Yeah, exactly. So you do, it does sound weird when you say it, but what you do have to click onto the contact, hover over the contact that they work for, and it will go below them in that option set there. So give that a go, and if it doesn't work, give us a shout and we'll. Oh, brilliant. Okay, has that helped?
Another org chart one. Can you make
Yeah.
calls from the org chart?
Great question. I actually don't think you can at the moment. Hang on a minute though. Let's think this through. So if we click into go back into one, let's have a little loop. Go into the org. So if I go on to click onto a person, let me edit first. Just seeing if I can open up the tile of that person. I'm sure you can. I don't want to move from here. Hang on. Let me try if I go to notes. Hang on 1 second. Sorry. Let's try that again. That's weird. It should open up the notes section. There you go. So, do you know what? It has email, so you can pop up an email, but it doesn't have phone number in there at the moment.
So you
So
click
what I
into
would
the
say,
contact
yeah, you'd
itself.
have to click into the contact in there, sure. Yeah.
Okay. Last one, I think, on org charts is
Yeah, sorry.
are charts also set up to include candidates as well as client contacts? For example, could they
Yeah.
include people who work for the client but not necessarily client contacts for headhunting purposes?
Yep, you can do one of two things. So when you're in a candidate record and you create them and you use the CV to parse over, the client information goes into a field called latest employer. So it doesn't connect to any company. But what you can do is if you go above to the record, sorry, the field that's called client and search for a client, it will connect that candidate to the actual business, which means that they can be used as you say, for a headhunting in the org chart. Also, just in a similar fashion, if you place a candidate, what will happen is the client field will then be updated with the client they're working for, and the reports to field will be updated with the new hiring manager they work for. So automatically the candidate goes into the org, and straight away their reports to is the person that hired them. So it automatically does all of that for you on placement,
Amazing.
which is awesome.
And then a quick one on hierarchy.
Yeah,
You mentioned permissions. Is this
I did.
part of analytics or part of core Mercury?
So it's let's go with Core Mercury. It's actually a dynamics feature, so that's why it doesn't sit in core as such. So it's dynamics is really the answer. It doesn't, if you just went and had an out of the box system, you wouldn't see view hierarchy. We switch it off, but you can choose to then have a permission given to you, and then you can build them up as well. So that's how that works.
That's it for now. I'll let you continue.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Thanks for the questions, folks. Right, we're getting into lists. So talking of the status of a client, just want to get you start thinking about building lists for consultants, and I'll be quite interested, to kind of see what you're thinking about building these lists. Now, the first one I'm going to focus on is just on accounts. So you could focus on building lists under my accounts or under accounts that I follow, but it makes more sense to be building these lists in the whole system, using all of your database to find the right people or the right businesses. So let's say I want to find all my businesses who have a client status of suspect. Suspect means you've added the company on, but you've never added a vacancy. Yeah, just to be really clear. So no vacancies at all. If you get them to prospect, it means that they've got a vacancy or had a vacancy, but they've never made a placement. And client means that they've made a placement at some point. Okay, just to be really clear with the definitions, which we're going to use today. So I'm going to say all my suspects. So I want to focus on this as a target list of accounts. I'm going to apply that in there. And I've got a team that work in New York. So I'm going to go to the address city and I'm just going to filter in there. Now, because the address city field is a free text field, what you always want to remember with free text field is what I'll show you here. Can you see someone's written New York and someone's written New York City? So what you don't ever want to do on a filter is put equals, because you won't capture everything. So you always want to put contains when you know that it's a free text field, just to make sure you don't miss anything. So I'm going to put New York. So let's pop that in. Nice. So you see it's capturing everything, no matter how someone's written it. And I now have 32 businesses that my New York team can now go and focus on, basically as a list. Okay. Now, before we go and send it over to them and save that list, because it's not saved and defined yet, just be thinking about what would be useful for them to see in this list. So at the moment, they can see the address, which probably isn't that helpful if it's always going to say New York. We can see the phone number, hugely helpful because you can dial out from here. We're clearly not using these fields very much, so it might be handy, but not at this point of the view. Client ID, unsure, and we know the status. So I would suggest editing the columns, adding in columns, and definitely putting in, if you can. Let's try that again. We're going to want in there, I would probably want created by and created on. How long have we had that account? If you think about it, has that client been a suspect sitting on the system for 10 years? Or is it 6 months? If it's 6 months, you're probably relationship building. If it's like 10 years, something's, they've been dropped off. And then you've got to think about the approach. So it's quite a handy field to have in there. I would also put in last contacted, maybe even last contacted by. You might want to ask somebody what happened last time. And then close that in, and then you can reorder the list. So I definitely want in there, let's go with last contacted up here, last contacted by, pop that there. So put it wherever you want it. If you don't want something in, you can simply click and remove it. And you can kind of drag things in the order you want. So I'm probably going to remove the client status, to be honest. Keep it in or remove it, up to you. Let's keep it in. There you go. So that's how it will look. Now, clearly, there's a reason why we aren't doing business. We haven't been trying to call them. have tried in 2024, 2024. Do you see what I mean? So as you start then adding in and logging phone calls. Now, just a quick reminder, in the last release we had, the last contacted field is configurable. So as a business, you can decide what counts as last contacted. It used to be a phone call that's not a voicemail or an email sent from Mercury. But you might think an email sent isn't contact because you might not have heard back. So you could change that to phone calls out and meetings as an example. Do you know what I mean? You guys can decide as a business what you want last contacted to mean. So you'll know what that means in here. So yeah, every time someone then goes and logs something like a phone call or a meeting or an appointment, then that will then have data in, and then you can start sorting on the data, and then you've got a grasp on what's happening with that account, basically. So now what we're going to do is little star here is it's kind of indicating that we've made changes, but we haven't saved it. So then you click onto this and save it as a new view. Now, as I'm speaking about this, each business that joins Mercury, we always train each business to create views. These are called views, by the way, in the system. It might be that the people on this call, you might have someone you can go to and say, I'd like you to build this for me, or you might have permissions to do it yourself. Yeah, so just making that clear that sometimes we just train a group of people designated to build reports in the system. So it's up to you guys whether you build this yourself and pass it on, or maybe go to an expert internally and get them to build it. So I'm going to save it as a view and say that. So rename it, put in one name that you think sensible. Oh, looks like I've been practicing today. So clients that are suspect in New York. By the way, you might want to know this while we're here. You can, when you're adding a name to a new report, hit Windows and full stop. And you could put a little emoji in if you like. I don't know about you, but with New York, I always think about hot dogs and pizza slices. Not saying that's essential to put it in, but just to say. There you go. So whatever you want to put in there, you can save that view. That's permanently in the system. Fabulous. And then basically with the view, at the moment, only you can see it if you're the one that built it. So at this point, you would have to go in and share it to the team that's working in New York or the individual. So you go to manage and share on the right-hand side. You'd pick the one that you just created. So client suspect in New York City, go in and share it here. Please, 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 when you're creating views, always share it to us as Mercury. So always share to Mercury support in the first instance so that we can also see it. We might not have Mercury support in here, but they should be in your system. So always select us as Mercury, and then always pick the team that you want to share it to. So if you've got teams in the business, you can pick a team. Excuse our list in here. So let's go with the Oz new business team. And then from here, you do need to give permissions to that person or that team. Okay. So to Mercury, to us, always give us the option to read and to write, so we can read and see the report and we can amend it. You don't have to give us delete options at all. To the team, I would just give them options to read it. So as soon as they go into that area, they can then see that report. Okay. Now, this is not just about building reports. This is also about doing things with them. So what we could do is you could select from the left-hand side, and you could open the org from here. So as I've now got this list that I've been sent to me, I could then open the org chart and think, right, what are we working with? Okay, so we don't have, do you see what I mean? It's a defined org in here. You would then spend time researching who's the right person to speak to, build up the org chart. You can do exactly the same with the visual hierarchy. So you can click on view hierarchy and check that as well. Do you see what I mean? You can start working through building it up as you work. And don't forget, if you want to, you can select particular clients that you want to follow, which is a more static list without logic. So you can follow clients as well. And one thing it's taken me a while to get used to, but it's so good, is you can show this list as a focused view. Check out this, because I don't have to click into account and click back. Look at this. I think you'll like this. So now I've got the account on the left and I can see the whole record on the right. and I can just scroll through that list as I'm working in the system. So it makes such a massive difference when I'm working through that list. So always remember the focus view. It's so good. Okay. That's
For
my
when you've
first one.
selected the client status, I've had a
Yes.
question about does it automatically change once a job is added, or is it
Yes.
something they have to manually change? Is it automatically done?
Yeah, great question. So all statuses in Mercury are locked fields, which means that based on an action, something updates it. So you don't have to remember, which is brilliant. So you're right. As soon as a vacancy is added, it goes from suspect to prospect. As soon as a placement's created, it goes from prospect to client. Yeah.
Listen, thank
Good question. Yeah. Yeah. Anything else?
you. There is. Can you build multiple org charts for large organizations, different teams, and different departments?
Not currently. It is very much dependent on the actual record that you're in, so the client record you're in. But where you can kind of get around that a little bit is with the hierarchies. So that's where you can start looking at stuff that links together. You can't do that in the org, but you can do it in the hierarchy, 100%. Yeah.
I'll let you carry on for now.
Why, thank you. Right, we're going to move. So from clients, I think this is great, by the way, that you can get a list of clients to follow or to target. But I think it's more when it comes to BD about people. The next couple of things we're going to build is all going to be about our people. Okay. So first one, we're going to jump in. We're going to change this is view from candidates to client contacts active. What we're interested in here is a targeted list on people in a certain region that we have not spoken to in a certain period of time, that where as the business that they work for has never made a placement. So that's what we're focusing on. So what we're going to do, instead of using the columns to filter, I'm going to use the more traditional way, which is go to edit filters on the right hand side. I'm hoping this one gives some good ideas, and you'll probably put some smart stuff in here as well. So I'm going to add a row of logic, which is going to be about last contacted. Yeah, so last contacted. So it always puts in today's date. We never want to see today's date, right? We all want to change it. So we're going to say that we've not contacted these people in over 6 weeks. So we want older than X weeks. Okay, so that's what we want. You can do loads of things by the way in here. You can do, last X months, last X days, last X weeks. There's lots of logic, but we just want older than X weeks, and we're going to say 6. So for your business, it might be 8 weeks or 12 weeks or 4 weeks. You can put in whatever you want. Okay. Now the next thing we want to focus on is if your data, location data, is not brilliant, which for some people it's not. People don't always put it in, let's say. Then what you could do is to focus on people in the UK as an example. You could add in a row where the work mobile number begins with, as an example, +44. People might sometimes put 44. So you could also do the work mobile. Let's pop this in. If you can spell it, it helps. There we go. And then we put begins with again, and then 44. But really, I do want people in London, ideally. So I can add a row where the work address, at the end of this, put colons and then city, equals, now don't put equals, always put contains, because it's a city field, London. Now the logic I want is clients where we haven't contacted them older than 6 weeks, and either the work mobile either begins with +44 or 44, or they're in London. So all you've got to do to change this into an or logic is select the 3 in here, go to the 3 dots and make them into a group. And then we can change that group into an or logic. Okay. So now I've got my focus people. Yeah, I want people ideally in London, but people in the UK. If you can narrow down other ways, you could use zip code, postcode, country, whatever field you want. Next thing is we want to make sure that the business they work for has a status of X. So what we need to do for that is at the bottom, we're not going to add a row because we don't want some logic from the contact record. We need to get to the client record. Okay. So we're going to go to add related entity. So it means a record that links to the one that you're in. So we click onto that. And then you've got to choose the right record. So is it a client that you want to get to? Is it a vacancy you want to get to, etc. So from here, what's important when you're building reports is it many to one or one to many? So if we think about it, so we're trying to find a client, there are many client contacts that they can only link to one client. So we're expecting the client logic to be in here. So if we have a little look, we've got company name clients. That's the field you need to use. It contains data. And now we're going to pick a row of logic from that client record. So the client status equals, and you could put suspect, prospect, or client. But I'm going to say prospect. So these are all my hiring managers, somehow connected to London or UK, not contacted them for over 6 weeks, and we've never made a placement. So now we've got a target list. Okay. So that's what the kind of info we're getting at today. So now I'm going to apply that logic. So let's click on apply. Thinking about it. Oh, hang on a minute. Something that I've missed. Ah, you see it's jumped out here. So let's put back the information there. Cool. Fabulous. Right, so we've got 552. That'll keep someone busy for a while. So basically what we're going to do from there is, again, don't forget the columns that you put in, you want to be smart columns. We don't care about availability on clients. We don't care about situation. So do edit those columns in there. Remove things that just aren't relevant in there. Make sure they've got good phone numbers, good last contact information. You get the idea. I won't go through all the same logic again, but make sure you change those columns. And then go and save that list. So same as before, save as a new view, give it a decent title that's better than mine, which isn't hard. So let's say hiring managers. Should we say no placements? Oops, not on placements, no placements. And then put UK as an example. There we go. So built a new view. Again, you would share how we shared earlier. Not going to repeat that as much. As such, sorry. But what I will do is mention that when it comes to contacts, the really nice thing in here is that what you can do is you can email from here. So not only could you dial out because you've got numbers, but you could say I was going to filter by, I don't know, all the hiring managers that have the word HR in them, in their title. So I've got 39 people in this logic with HR. I could then select those people and then go to the Mercury button and then send them out an email. So why it's so powerful having those lists is not only can you call through them and work through them, but you can also email out from here as well. Also, something else you could do, we're getting into it as well, is hot lists. So say I want a more static list that I want to work from. What we could do is we could add them all to a hot list, and that'll be a static target list rather than something that's dynamic in there. So we can add to hot list, create a new hot list in here, and then go ahead. I won't do it now. I'll show you a bit later. So lots you can do with here. Yeah, dial out, use as a call list. Don't forget our lovely focus view in here. Really nice if you're then going to dial through.
Michelle, we have had a question related to job titles on that process. So
yeah.
can you remove certain job titles from the list? I'm assuming you can do it as a do not include rather than include as a filter, but just to have a look at how that would work.
Yeah, good question. I like that. Let's have a little look. So if we say, yeah, let's just go to job title actually from here. Might be easier. So job title, filter by, does not. Suppose you have a does not equal. If you want to remove it out, you can do that, or does not contain data. Either of those will work.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, good question. Yeah.
And then another one. Once saved, do these lists update automatically, or do you have to refresh the search each time? I.e., you can set a search for 1 month, then have a month list ready to go for consecutive months when you open.
Yeah, great question. So the logic is actually based on, it is a dynamic list, means it works on logic, but it's the logic that you've built inside the filter. So what I mean by that is the fact that this one's actually an interesting one because I put in last contacted older than X weeks. What that means is if I then go and log a call against one of these people in my list, they'll drop off the list and I will lose complete sight of that manager. So you've got to think about what you want in this list. What is actually smarter is probably to not put that logic in. Do you know what I mean? So that when you contact them, they don't drop off the list and then you could just filter by it in a column instead. You could just do the older than and just filter rather than having it set in the list. But what is good in here is client status equals prospect. Again, if that client then makes a placement and their status becomes client, these people will drop off the list. Do you know what I mean? Because that's the whole point, is looking at the logic and it will drop them off. So it's not a search we run at a certain point, it's just always inbuilt in there. So whatever logic you build in, if it then doesn't match the logic, something will drop off your list, basically. Cool. Right, next one. I'm going to do two more of these just to give you little ideas, see what you think. The next one I'm thinking about is client contacts. We've got developers, I've got a developer coming in. I want to go and find all the hiring managers that have had vacancies with the job title of developer in the last couple of years. Okay. So if I go back to client contacts, active in here. And then this time, what we got to do is we've got the client contacts, that's fine. Hit edit filters. So there's no logic that we need on the hiring manager. We just care about the vacancies that they've worked on. So we're going straight to a related entity, straight to the vacancies that they've worked on. So vacancies here, if we click on the drop down, many to one or one to many. So one hiring manager could have many vacancies. So it's not a many to one. It's if we scroll down A to Z, get past the A to Z, you'll see there's a one to many. Like I say, there's one hiring manager and they could have many vacancies. So it's always going to be in here. So if we go down to vacancies, excuse my scrolling, but it's just so you can, you get used to building this logic the more you do it. But I'm just trying to give you little quick starting points. So when we get to vacancy, then you've got to pick which one you're looking at. Are you looking at vacancies connected to an approver? Well, no, we're not. Vacancies connected to an end client contact? No. So it's vacancies connected to hiring managers that we care about, because that's what we're building the report on. So that's the one that you would pick. Now we want to make sure it contains data. And in here, on the vacancy, you've got vacancy name as the main field. It's actually called name in here. So these are little nuances that you learn when you build these. So name is a free text field, so always use contains. And I'm going to put in developer. But just on the safe side, because we've also got the job title field on the vacancy, I'm going to put job title contains developer just to be safe, just in case it's one and not the other, which it should be both really. And then I'm going to do the select in here like before and make it into a group and then make that all. So basically we've got, active client contacts where they've had vacancies, the name or job title contains the name or the word developer. And then basically, I'm also going to add a second row, sorry, not in the OR logic, outside the OR logic, but connected to the vacancy, which is simply created on. And so we want ones that created in the last X years, last 2 years. So we know these hiring managers have had a developer role with us in the last 2 years. That will give you a really good target list when you get that right candidate in of who to call through. 100%. I put something, it keeps dropping out there. Am I writing too quickly, folks? Probably. Let's put that in. Take your time when doing reports. Don't speak like me. Right, okay. Fabulous. I did not realise the time. I'm going to have to drop out a report, I think, in here. But what I'll do is this is how you can do that. So I'd have 149 contacts that I may never have thought of to approach and spec in that candidate to. Okay. Right, I'll tell you what we'll do. I'll scrap my last one. I can always post it in the chat, but it is a really nice one. But I want to just mention one other thing. Not only do you have these amazing lists that you can create with the logic and data that you've got, just a little reminder that in the left-hand side here under contacts, we have in the Mercury ribbon our search function. So you can, of course, search for hiring managers, or you can build lists using the data. It depends what you want to do, really. So if we search, just to kind of show you that it's here, it's a really powerful tool. The thing it won't have is you can't then link to related entities. So a lot of the things I was showing you the views deliberately are things you can't do in the search. But there's lots you can do. So I can say, make sure, by the way, you're in the client contact search because it shows candidate and vacancy as well. Yeah, so make sure you're in there. And then the job title, I'm looking for people that have the word HR in their job title. So I'm going to put that in, hit enter. I'm then going to load AI suggestions that will find me lots of really good job titles. Hang on a minute. This was definitely working earlier. Let me try that again. So again, it should find, there you go, that's what we're looking for, right? So we want HR specialists, HR consultants, people like that. So I've got quite a high number at the moment. Now I do want people in London. So if I go to filter, I'm going to go to free text and put in London and hit enter. That's reduced that down a little bit. And the thing I really want to focus on in search is that if you're using tags, tags are so important in a hiring manager search. Reason for that is because you don't have a CV to back on. So, you know, in candidates, you've got the CV where you can do a lot of keyword searching. On the client contacts, you don't. So if you're looking for clients that work in a certain sector or industry, you'll need to use tags against them so that you can find them and then target. So I'm looking for people in investment banking, HR directors that I can then speak to. I have got 14 people in my results. They're the people I want. Yeah, so HR, people around that job title, investment banking that I'm targeting, and London. So that's how you can build up your search in here. You can start using last contacted and you can add hot lists in. We'll talk about them next time. But ultimately, you can view the details of that person. So just a very quick click on here just to show you the really nice candidate card, we normally call it, contact card in this instance. And you can then very simply scroll through the results in here, read their timeline, read their comments, get to their LinkedIn if you've got the right license, and work through. And you can even call out from here. So you can dial out from here. Yeah, it will dial out if you've got something connected, log that call, book in a follow-up call, and keep moving. Last thing, promise Emily, then we'll wrap up. I know we're at time. So basically, I can add all of those people straight into a hot list. We know we're going into hot list in part 2. So we're building up our hot list deliberately. So add those in. Got a hot list here of all your people. So at the bottom, click here to select or create a hot list. So I'm going to have my HR, hiring managers. Oops, there we go. Investment banking. Simple as that. There we go. So I've now created a brand new list using the search that I can then come back to again and again. So we'll come back to hot lists later, not today. I'll get told off. And then basically the last thing is you could save the search as well. So you've got an option in there. You can use a saved list in a search, or you could build a hot list. It depends very much what you want to be doing. But that is where I am going to leave it right now. So what I'll do is I'll pop up the slides back up. We'll get through some questions. Sorry, so many nice things to tell you guys. Could you tell I can keep going?
Yes, I now understand why we had to split it out. Because when you said it, I was like, I'm sure it'll be fine in one session. No, no, no.
Yeah, exactly.
Needed
Yeah.
two. So we have had a couple of questions. Let me just scroll
Yeah,
back up
great.
because it's been a couple answered anyway along the way.
Yeah.
One's related to the view where it had the 6-week countdown.
Yes.
And it said, will more people be added if they hit the time period? So reappear if they drop off and then don't
Yeah.
have another call for 6 weeks? I assume
Yes,
yes.
100%. Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
and then, sorry, let me jump to the Q&A tab.
That's all right.
So there's, if another internal user adds a contact who matches the criteria on my list, how will I know that a new contact has been added and how can I identify them?
Yeah, good question. It's you'd have to have a columns in there that were created on and created by so that you could see, and then you can filter on that logic on the kind of newest to oldest in there. Then you could immediately go, oh right, hang on, that's like this year or this month, and it was created by X. And you'd immediately know that from those columns.
Amazing. So just a couple more filters that you need to, I guess, apply.
Yeah, you don't necessarily, yeah, you could put the columns, do you know what I mean? When you add the columns in of the data, rather than changing the filter logic, you'd put the columns in and then you can just sort by that data in there and see the latest or the oldest or the newest, basically.
Amazing. Let me just double check the chat once more. I think we are fine for questions, but let me check. Oh no, one more. Is there a way to add multiple contains when adding a job title? For example, if I'm looking for a director of software, if
Yeah,
I just put director, that could be any department. If I
yeah,
just put software, that could be any position. So
yeah.
yes, but
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you want to add
Basically,
anything,
as we built up that logic, with the or, you could put name equals this and name equals this and name, and you could build up, select them all and make them into a group. So you could do a couple of different job titles varying in that way. Yeah.
amazing. I guess same goes for anything. If you wanted multiple
Yeah.
cities, multiple addresses, you can just do that or logic.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
Amazing. I will quickly wrap up as I'm cautious of the time. So a
Yeah.
few things just to say at the end of every webinar really is just that we've got a few resources to keep you up to date. First one of those is the knowledge base. As always, any question you've got, drop in there. We've got a new kind of interface which we think looks really cool. So that's first asset. Then we've also got our community. If you're not in the community and want to be, there's a lot of engaging chat in there. You can ask questions, you can engage with other Mercury users. Please reach out to Tony if you're not already in there and he will be happy to get you added. And then lastly from me is that we have got a webinar series subscription. So if you would like to be notified by me every time we do have a new webinar launched, just scan this code, or equally I can drop that link in to the chat so you can easily get added. If you didn't want to attend, we send out the recordings to every single webinar. So just a way to keep up to date with what's going on. And then, as we mentioned, this is the first part of a two-part series. So Michelle, do you want to run through what we'll be talking about in 2 weeks?
Yeah, 100%. So today was all about being smart with org charts, visual hierarchy, building those lists and sending them to the right people. The next thing we really want to get into is actually what do we do with it? So running action. So things like sending spec sends, actually using the hot list. What can we do with a hot list? Creating info records, which are leads in Mercury. How do we convert an info into a vacancy? How do we convert a spec send into a vacancy? So lots of stuff about actual conversion rates in there. How do we convert things? How do we manage things? How do we manage those lists? So it's all about that in part 2. And as you can see, it's on the 30th at 1:30, same time.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Michelle. It was so insightful. I think I love the visual elements, as you mentioned at the beginning, but there's definitely so much you can do, different filters, different searches just to work for your business. So really excited for part 2. Not long,
Yeah.
we'll be back again, but I'll make sure the recording is sent into this chat. Any questions you've got, obviously reach out to me, Michelle, anyone in the team. And there's a couple of questions around the AI functionality. So if you want to reach out to your CSM on that. And other than that, have a lovely rest of your afternoons and hope to see you all on the 30th.
Yeah, look forward to it. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.